morning, everyone. Let's get this party started. This is a fun place to do church in, hey? I really like it. I like it. Come on, guys. Come on and sit down. Frank is great. He's just herding people along to their chairs. You guys are awesome. You guys are like 1 minute warning. I got it. I'm going to go sit down. Other people are like, no, I got to visit with my friends. Well, recently, my almost 3.5-year-old son, Finn, he's earned himself a nickname. We've started referring to Finn as Finn the Boss. Because he started to bark out commands constantly. Like when I ask him, Finn, please put on your shoes, he'll say, no, Mom, you do it. He's all day long, he's saying things like, Mom, you need to go get me water. Mom, you need to go find my blue pants and put them on me. Oh my goodness. He's almost 3. He doesn't understand yet that this is rude. We're trying to teach him as best we can that talking to people like this is not respectful. There's a difference between asking that was intense. I'm like, it's scared to stand. Okay, are we good? Are we good? I've never had that much feedback. That was crazy. But we're trying to teach Finn that there's a difference between asking and demanding. And that he gets to choose his words, and that he can choose better ones. So if you think of us the next week, month, year, keep us in your prayers. In your prayers, we could use that. I think we can all agree that this is an important lesson to learn, a useful lesson. Learning this could save him and the people around him, like his mom, a lot of headache in the future. Show of hands. How many of you know someone in your life who hasn't quite learned this lesson and is still a headache in your present? Anyone? Don't elbow the person next to you. That's not polite. Yeah, okay. So it's not just me. Because we know it, words are a powerful thing. When they're used inappropriately or irresponsibly, they have the power to be detrimental and a slowly eroding effect on our lives. In this sermon series, we are going through the book of John. And if I was going to sum up, James. James, gotcha. We're going through the book of James. And if I were going to sum up the book of James, like, what's it about? Like, before I read it, let me know what it's about. It's about wisdom. That's kind of how I would sum it up. If you've been a Jesus follower for a length of time, you've probably heard of the book of Proverbs. And that book is a book of wisdom. It's all these little nuggets of wisdom, like Proverbs 12:18. Thoughtless words can cut deeply, like a thrusting sword, but the speech of the wise is a healing balm. These little nuggets.
We are having trouble with your microphone.
Okay.
Sorry.
What do I got to do?
And we're going to do this.
There's like a science to this.
Let's try that.
What did you do? I don't know. I'm not the pro. Sorry, guys. Where was I talking? Oh, yeah, all these nuggets of wisdom are in Proverbs, whereas James is kind of like expanded on those nuggets of wisdom. And he's more like the buddy around the campfire when it's gotten really late and the flames have died down and he wants to share some experiences with you and the things that he's learned. That's more what James is about. And he's got this famous chapter. It's chapter 3, and it's the one that we're going to be focusing on, and it's classically referred to as the taming of the tongue. Now, I don't know about you, but I think tongues are a little weird. I don't know, if anyone else has this feeling? Like, just even the words taming the tongue, you're like, hey, my tongue? Like, that's just, like there's this muscle in your mouth, you use it to eat and talk, and it's wiggly and wet. Have you ever tried to grab someone's tongue? Maybe you haven't? It's weird. Tongues give me the heebie-jeebies. So if I was going to kind of like paraphrase the book of James, like a Proverbs 3.0 by Frankie, I would call this mastering our words because tongue is weird. Take it or leave it however you like it to be said. But how many of us have seen a family that has been torn apart by words, by something that someone else said? Or perhaps you've experienced a parent's public shaming and it's broken your trust. A person who spews out spit and rage isn't an attractive person to be around. We can push people away just by using our words. A couple that hasn't mastered the way they speak to each other can end up in a miserable marriage. And a leader in a workplace who hasn't learned this lesson won't have the respect that they really want. And an employee who likes to speak their mind, it could afford them their position, or more likely they'll be that coworker that no one really wants to be around. The skill of mastering our words is important because it can be the difference between peace and war in our personal lives. So let's jump into what James has to say. James chapter 3, it says, "My brothers and sisters, do not encourage a large number of you to become teachers because teachers will be held to a higher standard. We all stumble along the way. If a person never speaks hurtful words or shouts in anger or profanity, then he has achieved perfection. The one who can control his tongue can also control the rest of his body," or the rest of his life, really. "It's like when we place a metal bit in a horse's mouth to ride it. We can control its entire body with the slightest movement of our hands. Have you ever seen a massive ship sailing effortlessly across the water? Despite its immense size and the fact that it is propelled by the mighty winds, a small rudder directs the ship in any direction the pilot chooses. It's just the same with our tongues. It's a small muscle capable of marvelous undertakings." This is a horse bit, if anyone recognizes that. I've spent my whole life watching my parents tame, train, and race horses using bits just like this. I have learned its importance that this tool, along with a few others, and then some trained leg movements, you can steer a direction of a horse anywhere you choose. When I was a kid, I was on the back of a horse in the riding arena, and I was riding her along, and the horse, she was getting bored of my childish walk and trot, and she was actually a racehorse. And so she decided, I'm bored, and she took me for a run. And we went running around the arena over and over at full speed. And I was small and inexperienced, and eventually quite scared when I realized I can't stop her. And so I bailed off. I just kicked my feet out of the stirrups and jumped and went head first into the dirt. And you know what? When my mom picked me up out of the dirt, she didn't say, "Oh, Frankie, you cannot ride horses anymore." That's not what she said. She said, "Frankie," she more communicated this, I guess, more than anything, but she communicated that, "Frankie, we got to teach you how to get control of your horse." And it's the same with our words. James isn't saying don't talk. Some people, you're robbing us of some very needed, beautiful words in this world, all in an effort to achieve that thing James was talking about, that perfection. And you're calling that effort of just not talking control. I'm here to say that's not control. You can't control the horse if you're not on it. Others of you, you've been taken for a ride. Your words have taken you to some needless, painful places, all because you didn't have the control you thought you did. Thankfully, there are some tools, like a horse's bit, that we can use to get our words under control. We just need to apply a bit of wisdom. I knew you would. So the first thing that we need to know in order to start getting control of our words is that your words are your choice. Crazy concept, right? Yeah? The words that come out of your mouth, you choose them. Yeah, not rocket science. But you know what? We know this, but we don't always live it, do we? What about those blow-ups that we have? Or sometimes when we overshare something? Or have you ever said something without thinking? I do that. Our words are our choice. James keeps talking about this. He starts saying, and do you know how many forest fires begin with a small ember from a campfire? James obviously doesn't know where we live. We're very familiar with this concept. But he's relating it to the tongue. The tongue is a blazing fire, seeking to ignite an entire world of vices. The tongue is unique among all parts of the body because it is capable of corrupting the whole body. It is a spring of relentless evil, brimming with toxic poisons. James is getting really dramatic here because it has that big of an effect. But I want to focus on verse 9. Ironically, this same tongue can be both an instrument of blessing to our Lord and Father and a weapon that hurls curses upon others who are created in God's own image. Mastering our words is not just a benefit to us, it has the capability to bless or curse the people around us, the created ones of God. Your words are your choice, and you get to choose whether you're going to make a deposit into the lives of the people around you, or if you're going to make a withdrawal. And if we're really honest, if I'm really honest, there are some people in my life that I'm overdrawn with. I'm in the red. I've got some really great people in my life, and they've afforded me some overdraft protection. Love you. But not everyone does. Our words are our choice, and we get to choose if it's going to be a deposit. That's our first piece of this puzzle, or piece of our tools, is just knowing that our words are our choice. James keeps going. He says, one mouth streams forth both blessings and curses. My brothers and sisters, this is not how it should be. Does a spring gush crystal clear water and moments later spurt out bitter salt water? My brothers and sisters, does a fig tree produce olives? That'd be weird, I guess. Is there a grapevine capable of growing figs? I like figs, but I guess they don't grow on grapevines. Can salt water give way to fresh water? This thing that James is talking about here reminds me of one summer. We had 2 raspberry patches at our place, and I had planted the first one years earlier, and raspberries did as raspberries do, and it had shooters that went like across the yard and like came up on the other side. So we had these 2 patches of raspberries, which meant double the raspberries. And I was okay with this idea. It was really good. But you know what? The second patch, the berries weren't sweet. That's annoying. That's like a super letdown. I'm like, double the raspberries. Not double the raspberries. That was a trick. Because who wants sour raspberries? Who wants raspberries that aren't sweet? I'm going to tell you right now, no one. No one likes raspberries that aren't sweet. James is saying that our words are meant to produce blessings because that's who we are. We are not meant to produce curses. The second piece to taming our tongues, to mastering our words, is to know that you need to be the true you and be like Jesus. Don't fall for the you be you, and if people don't like it, they can take a hike mentality that's really popular these days. If you find yourself saying, I'm just brutally honest, I'm just the type of person who's to the point, I'm just the type of person who likes crude humor, I'm just not a person who's good with commitment, those aren't you. Those are your habits and hang-ups that you've accepted. This just gives your words excuses again. And before you know it, like a horse without a bit, they're off carrying you away to those needless and painful places that you didn't need to go to. So don't use the you be you and other people can take a hike excuse. You guys, you be the true you. You be like Jesus, and people won't be taking a hike. They'll be hiking towards you because the love of Jesus, it's attractive like that. So who's the true you? You are the son or daughter of God. You're his created ones. That means that the true you is love and peace. You are secure and accepted. You are wanted and safe. You are sure and of a sound mind. And you know what? Some days you're gonna forget that. Heck, I forgot that before I came on stage and thought I needed to impress all of you while I was up here. Whew, talk about nerves. Okay. But you know what? That's what Jesus was here for. He's our example so that when we forget who the true you is, you can look to Jesus and be like, all right, that's what it looks like. He's our reminder that we're raspberries, not sour berries. So we're building these tools to help us get control of our words, to tame our tongues. We are knowing that words are our choice, that we make deposits or withdrawals, that we need to come from a place where we're being the true us, when we're being like Jesus. And then James gives us probably the most practical and useful tool of all in taming our tongue: wisdom. Until you grasp wisdom, you probably won't be able to understand how to tame your tongue. It's actually so important that I'm going to get Frank to come up here and lend us his words to really explain to us what wisdom looks like. So help me get Frank up here, guys. Shazam.
All right. Hi. Oh, I need notes. There is something truly powerful in your words, isn't there? How many of you have ever had a time where somebody spoke something to you and it was like, oh man, they just totally filled up my sails. I'm totally jazzed up now as a result of just somebody speaking to me. Yeah? How many of you actually had that this morning? Somebody came up to you and just said something and it really encouraged you. Anybody? Yeah? You did? Would you mind telling me who? That guy? Hey, you, that guy. $20 gift card for Happy Cow ice cream. Anybody else say something that totally encouraged them? No? Yeah, you did, but you don't want to say who it was? No, it's not me. Somebody else. Somebody else. Yes.
My sister just lifted my sails by saying that I encourage her, that I'm better.
Ah, look at that. Well done. Awesome. My family and I, there's something in those people that speak love. There is just a wisdom to them. My family and I we're headed to family camp this week. We've been talking about family camp for a little while. It's a week-long get-together where a bunch of people from sister churches and other places all get together. We go down to Hungry Horse, Montana, which is just outside of Glacier National Park in Montana, and it is so beautiful there. A few years ago, a woman was attacked by a female grizzly bear there, apparently while picking berries that were sweet. She was attacked by this mama grizzly bear who they just snuck up on unknowing, and mama had a couple of cubs there. The National Park Service issued a statement afterwards saying, in an attempt to defend a perceived threat to her cubs, the bear attacked and fatally wounded her. Though the woman didn't intend to harm the bear or her cubs, the bear did not know that and responded according to her nature with fatal results. As dangerous as it is to come across the path of a mother bear with cubs, the Bible tells us that it's actually even more dangerous to cross paths with a fool without wisdom. In fact, it says, let a bear robbed of her whelps meet a man rather than a fool in his folly. That a fool without wisdom can do more damage than a grizzly bear. Isn't that crazy? So how many of you are like, oh, I just want to be a fool going around wreaking havoc? Or how many of you are like, oh no, I could use some wisdom? How many of you are yes, I need some wisdom? And how many of you are ignoring me? The others of you. All right, let's get some wisdom then. Yeah. Who is wise and understanding among you? I'm reading from James. Let them show it by their good life. I love this. Actually, you have to show it then. You think you're wise? You're going to have to prove it by showing it. By deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, don't boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. That's kind of heavy. Demonic. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. Then this verse, the verse we're going to touch on a little bit here today. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere, peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. Meaning, if you are somebody who is like peace-filled and full of wisdom, then there's going to be right living all around you. Things are going to go well around you. Get around those people because life is going to be great around them. This verse shows us that wisdom is not something you know. It's something you show. Wisdom is not something you know. It is something that you actually show. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. See, James uses 8 words here that I want to quickly look at here this morning to describe wisdom. And when you read this list, you're going to notice that it's a different kind of wisdom than earthly wisdom. We often think of wisdom as just somebody who knows it all. Somebody who's wise is somebody who is like all-knowing and they're just like so smart and they know all of these things. And here we're finding out, no, that actually isn't the case at all. Wisdom is somebody who doesn't have it all together, but loves anyways. Loves anyways. He says that wisdom is first of all pure. That's the first word there. This is where you check your motives. This is where you ask yourself, is this wise? Well, you have to check yourself and ask, is my heart pure here? Is what it is that I'm doing here, you'll know it's wise if it's actually others-based, if it is love-based. True wisdom has a pure motivation. Some of you know that Jody and I sold our house and we've been living in a motorhome for the last month. You can go and check out my beautiful home. It's just across the street over there. Anyways, we've been looking for a house during this time, and we felt like God was challenging us towards a house that's just a couple of blocks over that way. And so we tried to get it, and the deal fell through, and it didn't work out, and we were frustrated and grumpy and disappointed. And then about a week later, we felt like God kind of say, no, go back and try again. And so we went back and we tried again. And this time God, why, we're okay. Like, let's give it another shot. So we put in another offer, and they came back and said, no, it's not enough. And we prayed, and we felt like God gave us like this hard, don't go past this number. And we came up to that number, and they said, no, our number is $1,500 over that. And we were like, oh, I can't believe we're going to lose this deal over $1,500. This is so frustrating. And we're like, but we're just going to give it to you, God. And we had to check our hearts. We're driving out to our home, which was parked about a half an hour outside of town. And we had a moment where it was interesting. Jody was sitting beside me, and we were frustrated and like nervous. And I was sitting beside her, and at the exact same time, we had this moment where we were checking our heart. And I turned to Jody, and I'm just like, you know what, Jody? I feel like if we don't even get this, we're supposed to actually go and help those people move. They're old, and they're leaving Cranbrook, and even if we don't get this, maybe we're not supposed to get this because we're not offering them enough money, and they need more money to be able to survive. Are we going to be okay with choosing love for them over us getting the house? And she's like, God, you're just saying the exact same thing to me. And they literally, 10 seconds later, the phone rings, and they're like, they accepted your offer. And we're like, oh, man, that's really cool. Yeah, we're getting a house, which would be nice, end of August. But at the same time, God wanted us to get to a place where we had to actually ask ourselves, is our motive pure, or is this really just about us? Right? Because there's an interaction in everything. So it's first of all, it's pure. Check your heart. Do you want wisdom? Check your motive. Okay, he says that wisdom is also peace-loving. The Greek word for peace is irene, and it describes a right relationship between individuals or a right relationship between an individual and God. And we have to make sure that wisdom always finds a way to put aside differences between one another. Wisdom is always building bridges. It's always reconnecting what was lost. It's repairing what was stolen. You have to ask yourself, are you building bridges between people who are divided, or are you putting up walls? That's how you'll know if it's wisdom. He also says that it's considerate. Other translations here use the word gentle. And the Greek word describes a person where they've actually realized that it's wrong for them to go with the law. That they actually have to put aside what it is that everybody says, or what it is that the law says, or what it is that I said if you did this, then this would happen. Wisdom here is going, oh no, this shouldn't happen. I should actually give grace. A perfect example of this is the woman who was caught in adultery. I don't know how many of you have read that passage, but you need to go back and read it. It's really good. But according to the law, this woman had committed adultery, and the Pharisees, the lawmakers of the time, said that she needed to be put to death. And it was really easy. If you commit adultery, then we stone you. It's simple. Jesus was like, no. He prayed, and he went, no. That it was actually in his best interest. Wisdom actually said, no, we don't stick with what it is that the law says. There are some times that God's law is above the law. There are some times that grace comes before. And we have to ask ourselves, are you a grace-filled person? Are you somebody who is just like, oh no, this equals this? You're a person of policy always in your life. If you do this, then the result is this. Or are you at a place where you're like, oh no, I'm always kind of grace-filled? See, the problem is that wisdom is somewhere in between the two. That there's law and there's grace, and the person who is wise is able to live in between those two things. Also says that wisdom is submissive. Other translations say reasonable, but basically it means you are able to actually be convinced of something. You are somebody who doesn't think that they have to be right all the time. They are somebody who is actually willing to let other people speak into their life and challenge them on something. This happened to me this week where I was, the thing about living in a motorhome is there's really nowhere to escape. And so when there is squabbles or family issues, you live in less than 300 square feet. And so you actually have to deal with your garbage. And I was digging my heels in about something. And how many of you ever had a dad? I totally felt myself become my dad this week, where it's like, no, I said this, therefore it's this. How many of you ever had a dad like that? I was that dad this week, where stop raising your hand, Evie, where I said this thing, and you want to know what's crazy? I was totally wrong. But it was like there was this pride that bubbled up in me, and I had made my decision, and so that's my decision. And my kids were like, Dad, but that's just not right. And Jody's like, Frank, that's not right. And Eve's like, Dad, that's not right. And I was like, I made my decision. It's like so dumb. I was not submissive. So don't do what I do, okay? Do the other thing. Be filled with wisdom. He also says that it is full of mercy and good fruit. Now, James connects these two terms here because they kind of need to be connected. In the Greek, mercy literally means pity for the one who is suffering. Good fruit means that you do something as a result of mercy. The problem is many of us go, oh, I just feel so bad for so-and-so. Did you hear? Oh, that's awful. They're going through that thing. Yeah, we'll just have to pray for them. And don't get me wrong, you absolutely need to pray for them. But what if you actually did something too? Like these things are locked together. What if you said, I have such mercy for so-and-so, and I'm going to do something about it? That's wisdom. When mercy and action are tied together. Okay? I need to keep going. Then there is the wisdom that is impartial. And this word refers to treating everyone equally without favoritism. Many years ago, I was trying to convince a local radio host to play a new song by a new artist that I absolutely love. So I did the old-fashioned call-in thing, and I'm like, "Hey, you got to try playing this new song. Don't you want to actually play some good music? You should do this." Trying to convince him, and he literally said these words. He said, "Actually, we'll play a mediocre song by an artist that's already recognized before we'll play something new." I'm like, that's dumb. Anyways, Impartial people actually are impartial, and they'll judge something on what it is that it is. We see this idea of people just following along because some politician that they love or some political party that they follow has said something, and so they just go along with it instead of actually being impartial. Maybe you just need to take what it is that's said and deal with the idea individually. Be impartial. Don't just play favorites, even with the people in your life. I know we all got favorites. I get it. And there's some people that you don't like. I get it. But you need to treat them equally. James says that wisdom is also sincere. It means without hypocrisy. It means it's not pretentious. It's not about image. It's about content. A wise person doesn't pretend that they have it all together all the time. A wise person recognizes the good and they recognize the bad in themselves. They're honest and open about who it is that they are. Is that you? Are you someone, how often do you go, oh man, here's the mistakes that I made? How often, even at work, do you share the mistakes that you made with people? How humble are you? How willing are you to talk about the good and the bad? See, these 8 characteristics of wisdom, purity, peacefulness, consideration, submission, mercy, good fruit, impartiality, sincerity, they all point in one direction. What is that one direction? How you treat others. Wisdom is not something you know. Wisdom is something that you show. We often think of wisdom primarily for the benefits that it brings ourselves. We're like, oh, I just want wisdom because I just want to be smarter and I'll make good financial decisions and I'll be a good parent and insert whatever in there. It's all about you. But the problem is wisdom is actually about the other person. And so if you have wisdom, you'll make good financial decisions. True. You won't be broke all the time. That'll be good. Which will actually give you the ability to love others with your wealth. Yet it's not just about you and accumulating your little fortune, your mass. It's actually about how can I love others with what it is that God gave me. That's why you want wisdom. And you'll have children that you can be proud of, absolutely. But parenting isn't about you. Parenting isn't about, I just want my kid to be quiet and listen when we're in public. That's what I would like. And I would like them to do what it is that I want them to do at home. If I have a curfew for them, I'd like them to show up 1 minute early from the curfew. That's what I want. And I get it, don't get me wrong. Wisdom on parenting is absolutely something that you want, but not so that you can get what it is that you want from them. Not so that they can follow you, not so that they can listen and be subservient. No. It's about actually making choices for them so that they'll grow up to be a person of character. They'll grow up a person of principle. They'll grow up and do what it is that God is calling them to do because you helped form them and shape them and love them. Make it, if you want wisdom, make sure that it is about others. Wisdom is not something you know, it's about something you show. Yes? Okay, Frankie's going to wrap it up for us.
Thanks, Frank. That was good stuff. I feel wiser already. Maybe only partway there because I know the stuff, but now I gotta show the stuff. Yeah. All right. Frank's pretty much he's given us the last piece of the really important piece of our tools here to tame our tongue, and we've built a pretty nice head stall. Like we've got our bridle and our bit, and we've got our reins, and it's looking really good. And like Frank said, if I know all of this stuff, it's not enough. It's like building the head stall and just being like, there it is. I got it. I'm still not in control until I put my hands on the reins and I start applying the wisdom with these other parts to my words. And it's at that point where I take the stuff from my head, the things that I've learned here this morning, and start putting them into practice, right? So what would it look like if I do this, to take this wisdom and apply it to my words? Well, it's going to make all the difference, but it's going to take some practice, if we're honest. I'm not always the best at this. So I think the best way to put our hands on our reins and apply wisdom to our words is simply, well, to take some time. It's going to look like taking time for our words. Test your words against wisdom before you speak, before you press send, and see how they line up. Is what I'm about to say, the thing I'm about to communicate, is it peace-loving? Is it peace-loving, considerate, submissive, merciful, good fruit, impartial, and sincere? All those things that Frank talked about? If not, if it doesn't quite meet the mark on one of those things, hold off. I do a lot of communicating in my job. I write a lot of emails. And I have things that need to be communicated that aren't so rosy a lot of the time. And I'm telling you, my first drafts for my emails are not pretty. I'm like, I gotta talk about this thing with this person. I'm gonna say all the things. And I do. I put them all in there because I'm like, I need to say this and this and this and this and this, and they need to know that. Thank God I have learned the gift of time and to let wisdom do its thing. Because I usually just save the draft and I give it a bit of time. And sometimes I give it 24 hours. You see, time gives wisdom space to work. When I come back, I reread it, and there are a lot of unneeded words in there. And then I find better ways to say the things that need to be said. And if it passes the wisdom test, it goes, it sends. And if not, I need to redo it. I'm not always the first to respond. Lots of people usually get their words in before I do. But I'm learning that that's not important. After some really heated email correspondence that's gone on, I've had people come up to my desk or pull me aside in a hall and be like, Frankie, really good email. That's a really weird comment to get, first of all. Really good email. And they say, that's exactly what needed to be said. I'm like, oh. I even had a woman once, she said, how does a young thing like you learn to be so wise? And I was like, to tell you the truth, I think it's a God thing. There is rarely a reason that we can't take time before we respond with our words or with our messages. We feel the need to respond immediately, but we'd be better off to take time and let wisdom do its work. And when we take time, we have this space where we can begin to dig deeper. What is it that I'm really trying to say? Is it about the socks that got left on the bedroom floor? No. No, when I really take the time to think about it, I don't feel like we're on the same team anymore. Is it really about being late? About like, oh, this person's always late. Or is it this thing where I'm beginning to realize that I don't feel like I'm worth much to people? That's what's really going on in my heart. Time lets me dig deep. Is it about the shirt that doesn't fit anymore? Or is it that I got this piece of me that's put some sort of worth in my body image? You see, this time thing, before I just start talking and spewing, I let wisdom do its work, and it does a work in my heart. Our words that we speak are just representations of our heart's condition, aren't they? I am not going to tame my tongue until my heart is in this condition where I want to do this. You guys, Jesus is really the only person who can do that work in my heart with me. And if I do, if I begin to have this change of heart and this change of words, it's going to change everything. I'm going to speak, and my words aren't going to create division and destruction. They're going to create unity. When I speak, I'll be understood, and I'll be better off at understanding others. I'll be removing offenses from my life. Family tension will be quickly released. And guys, marriages can feel fulfilled again. Jesus changes our heart, and you know what? He is the one whom wisdom comes from. Colossians 2 verse 3 says, "In him lies all wisdom." Guys, if this is what you want, if this is something you know you need to start practicing, and I think we all do, start with Jesus. He's going to make all the difference. And all this wisdom, when we give it time, Jesus is going to do that work in our hearts. And James says at the very end of chapter 3 that in all of this, we'll receive peace. Peace. I think that's something that we can all admit that we could use a bit more of in our life. And I think it's worth getting a hold of our words, taming our tongues in order to have this promise of peace that God gave, that he promised to us. So I'm just going to pray. Just pray that this wisdom, this knowledge isn't just something that we just hold on to. It turns into wisdom and we actually do something with it. We should do something with our words and start making those deposits. God, I thank you so much for these people here. These are people of value. You have put them in these seats. And God, I'm so thankful for them. I know these people here, God, and they desire you. They desire to know your heart and have your heart, God. So I just pray that as we go about our weeks, God, that you will just help us know your wisdom. God, I want to be quick to listen and slow to speak. And God, when I speak, I want them to be words of value. But I don't always know how to do that on my own. I'm not always sure of who I am and what I'm supposed to do. God, thank you for Jesus and that I can look to him and know what that's supposed to look like. God, I pray that the words that I send out, that they are not curses. That is not who you've created me to be. I know you've created me to be a blessing. I know that you've created me to be an encouragement. So God, I pray that you help me get control of my tongue, as awkward as it is. And I just pray that through your wisdom and through your heart, I'm going to learn to be this person of peace in a world that really needs some peace, that I really need some peace. I pray all these things in your holy name. Amen.